Potential tropical cyclone number 5 has formed, and it is forecast to become a hurricane, and tropical storm watches are now in effect for portions of the Leeward Islands. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Nice to see you on a later Sunday, and there's a good reason for that. A little bit later than normal, I was putting together the daily video and my spidey senses started tingling, and I kind of backed off because I thought if we were going to get an update from the National Hurricane Center about making this a tropical depression or potential tropical cyclone, it would happen at the 5 o'clock Atlantic Standard Time hour. And that's exactly what happened. So friends, you are getting all the newest information here, fresh off the presses, hot off the presses here at Meteo Mundo. We have potential tropical cyclone number 5. Okay, this was the disturbance we were watching, but now that we have PTC 5, we do have the first track and cone for the National Hurricane Center, and we do have our first tropical storm watches that are now in effect for portions of the Leeward Islands. My friends across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, you know I'm going to get to your local forecast. We'll go island by island with your rain chances. That will be coming up. But as you would expect, we're going to start off this video with what's happening with PTC number 5. Now, really on this Sunday, it hasn't looked much better. Really, it's kind of struggled a bit. The thunderstorm activity has been somewhat paltry. There's been a little bit of drier air. There's not a vertically stacked area of low pressure as of yet. But all indications are that as it gets closer to the Leeward Islands, as we get into Tuesday and Tuesday night, that this could rapidly become at least a medium strength tropical storm. And that's why we have the tropical storm watches. So let me give you the first advisory from PTC number 5. It is 950 miles or 1,530 kilometers to the east-southeast of Antigua. It is moving fast. It's moving to the west-northwest at 21 miles an hour. That's 33 kilometers, so there is some good forward speed. Winds are 30 miles an hour. Pressure's 1,010. Look, it's a relatively weak system at this point in time. May not happen in the next 12 hours, but over the next 24, it's forecast to become a depression. Now, again, the numbers that you see as far as time, that's just the initial issuance time, so don't worry about that. But I just want to show you here that well before we actually get into the Leeward Islands and the Lesser Antilles in general, it's forecast to become a tropical storm. And then strengthening as it goes into Tuesday. Winds as it approaches the Leeward Islands, 45, but gusts up to 60, and then over the Leeward Islands late on Tuesday with winds of 50, gusting to 65. It's actually forecast to get even stronger as it moves over the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and coast to Puerto Rico. Notice that this first track is also a little bit farther north and east compared to the GFS yesterday, which was south of Puerto Rico, and we'll talk about some of the track and intensity differences. But friends, that's obviously tropical storm Ernesto in the Leeward Islands and the Virgin Islands of Puerto Rico, but just north of Puerto Rico, it is forecast to become a hurricane, Hurricane Ernesto, and then begin that recurve. And down the road towards next weekend, we'll have to talk about Bermuda and some of the impacts that Ernesto might be bringing to that area. So first thing I want to show you is the track for the Hurricane Center kind of just timed out for us here. The information I just said at the bottom of your screen. But we are forecast to see Ernesto again become a tropical storm and then move through the Leeward Islands late on Tuesday. Obviously, the weather in the Leeward Islands just kind of goes downhill throughout the day on Tuesday. Then for the Virgin Islands of Puerto Rico, late Tuesday night throughout the day on Wednesday, and then moving away from the islands. At this point in time, this track would spare some of the worst weather for the Dominican Republic and the Turks and the Caicos, but there is still some play in the models as to where what's going to become Ernesto goes as it gets through places like the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So, of this first advisory, we have tropical storm watches now in effect for these areas: Anguilla, Antigua Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Martin and St. Martin, Saba and St. Eustatius, Montserrat, and Guadeloupe. Tropical storm watch means tropical storm conditions are possible within that area in the next 48 hours. These more than likely will be upgraded to warnings fairly quickly. And then for the Virgin Islands and for Puerto Rico, it's just a timing issue. We're not within 48 hours yet, but probably tomorrow you will start to fall under tropical storm watches and or warnings. Again, not forecast to become a hurricane in these areas, but forecast to become a tropical storm. So let's get back into it here. And again, we'll look at the water vapor imagery. A few thunderstorms have developed to the north and to the west here, but again, it hasn't really increased as far as any organization on this Sunday. Now, what's going to end up happening is we have basically all just surface winds right now, and nothing is very stacked vertically. But as we get closer to the Leeward Islands tomorrow and early on Tuesday, we're going to get more what we call upper air divergence. That's going to allow the center to vertically stack, and that should allow it to more quickly strengthen. Again, it's not going to go from this to a hurricane, but to a medium tropical storm is likely as it gets into the Leeward Islands here on our Tuesday. So all of our friends in these areas need to start preparing for tropical storm conditions, okay? And we're going to break down the models, we're going to break down the potential winds, but as I already mentioned from the Hurricane Center right over the Leeward Islands, it's going to be 50 with gusts up to 65. So let's get into the models. We're going to start off with the GFS model. We're going to look at all the different kinds of models. I can promise you that, guys. Plenty to talk about here with this particular system. Now, it's going to come with a lot of different hazards. We'll talk about the rainfall totals, the surf and sea conditions, and obviously the winds and the rainfall as well. So, breaking this down in a timing sense as of now. First of all, I want you to notice that this formation zone in the track itself from the Hurricane Center has shifted slightly north than yesterday, okay? So places like Barbados and St. Lucia South really not going to see the full impacts, but still going to get some squally weather late Monday and into Tuesday. As far as the models go, when I put on these spaghetti plots, I want you to notice that they all basically fall within that envelope of the cone of uncertainty from the National Hurricane Center. There's a little bit more divergence here towards the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, but all of them have this recurve occurring at about the same spot. Now, that recurve is very likely to happen, but the question just exactly is, when is it going to happen? Is it going to happen as it gets, towards Antigua? Is it going to happen quicker and brush the islands? Is it going to drive into the Northeast Caribbean and actually have more of an impact for the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico? Those things are still certainly up in the air, okay? But when we look at the GFS model, and I'm going to take off these forecast models just a little bit easier to see here. When we talk about the timing, of course, today is Sunday the 11th. As we get into early on Tuesday, that's when we start to see the first signs of this moving in. Now look, at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, this still is a very fairly ragged system trying to spin up basically maybe 100 or 200 kilometers east of the Lesser Antilles, and then it finally does, and it does get stronger as we get into Tuesday evening and then into Wednesday. And again, this is going to bring some really sloppy, wet, very windy conditions here to those areas, and not far beyond this, friends, we can clearly see an eye develop. So the GFS does have fairly rapid intensification just as it gets north of the Virgin Islands and into Puerto Rico. So again, just north of there. One more time, looking at the track early on Tuesday, the 13th, you can see it moving through the islands. Now, we're still going to have some strong south winds all the way towards St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Still going to be some squally weather there, but the main wind impacts will be up in the Leeward Islands and then moving through the British and Virgin Islands and then into Puerto Rico and north. We'll switch over to the winds. And these are going to be sustained winds on the GFS. Going to loop those up. And look, I'm doing the short-term forecast right now. We're going to get into all the details here, and then we're going to look at that recurve potential and for Bermuda as well. Okay, so I'm just kind of taking it stair-step time-wise more than anything else. But for my friends in Bermuda, hang on, we're going to deep dive in for you guys as well. So we'll look at the winds here. And again, this is Tuesday. And then as we get into early Thursday. But let me back this up a little bit here. Notice as we start to see this, these are all sustained winds, right? So we would be teetering on a tropical storm right here, all right? So more than likely we get Tropical Storm Ernesto sometime Monday, starts to impact the islands on Tuesday, and then we just start to see widespread 30, 40, maybe even up to 50-mile-an-hour winds Montserrat north, right? St. Kitts and Nevis, Saba St. Eustatius, St. Martin, St. Martin, Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, even down towards Martinique and Dominica, sustained winds of 30 to 35 with maybe even some higher gusts. If you see those whites, those are the winds getting into that 30, 35 mile an hour range. It gets a little bit stronger even right here. And again, this would be early on Thursday morning. Now you're getting into medium tropical storm force winds of 50 to 55. Those are sustained. So gusts would be in that 60, 65 mile an hour range. On the GFS, This wouldn't be the worst situation for the Virgin Islands. We try and keep the core of winds on that right front quadrant, which is the strongest side of the storm, a little bit off of there. And you notice that there is a relatively sharp decline in winds, especially on the western side. So this track from the GFS, and it's funny because the strongest winds for places like St. Thomas and St. John and Tortola may actually occur on the back end as Ernesto tries to strengthen just north of the islands. I mean, certainly tropical storm conditions here. I mean, these are all sustained winds, guys. So you can see that. Again, sparing at this point in time on this model, the Dominican Republic and the Turks and the Caicos. And then beyond that, again, rapidly intensifying, getting stronger and stronger. And you notice that the center line from the hurricane center, the GFS model is almost following this center line, okay? So that's what it looks like as far as that goes. When I take a snapshot of the GFS, late Tuesday night, 1,004 millibar storm right over the Leeward Islands. Barbuda, Antigua right there. St. Kitts and Nevis just off to the west, obviously, Anguilla north and west. So tropical storm here on the GFS. European model, as it typically is, to be quite honest, is slower and weaker. It's one of the, it just seems like when these storms want to get going, the European model is kind of the slower storm. So it has it coming through kind of really late Tuesday, but then kind of, eking through on Wednesday, but not really developing, okay, until it gets towards the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, all right? So this one is a weaker system. Now the HAFS A, this is going to be kind of midday on Tuesday, right here again through the Leeward Islands, basically right over Barbuda. If I take myself off camera, you look at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, maximum winds on this product, which are sustained winds, are 50 miles an hour. So the forecast for the Hurricane Center, the GFS, and the HAFS A model all basically have sustained winds of 50 to 55, and I would say gusts 60 to 65, all right? So now we have three of the models kind of all near the same area, near the same time frame, and near the same strength, which is why, again, these areas need to start preparing for tropical storm conditions. This is the HMON reflectivity. If you watched yesterday's video, this had it as a category 2, just north of the Leeward Islands. It's still relatively strong. And again, this would be kind of an estimated rain presentation here, this reflectivity. But I just want you to notice, it might be just a little hard to see the islands here, but there will be some good banding south. So Martinique and Dominica and Guadeloupe will still have some fairly heavy rain, and even down towards Barbados and St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines could as well. Those spaghetti plots that I showed you, well, this is their intensity track, right? How strong will this get on those spaghetti plot or tropical models? Again, as it moves through the Lesser Antilles and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, we're still mainly looking at a higher end tropical storm, but not far after that we really start to stair step this out, and the majority of the models have Ernesto becoming a hurricane, and the official forecast from the Hurricane Center right now is actually a high-end Cat 2 flirting Cat 3 right here. Winds on this are going to be actually 110 miles an hour, okay? So let me go back over to this real quick, and then we're going to look at the rainfall. We're going to start getting into some of the individual hazards here as well. So I think we've kind of covered what I expect. Here's what I really wanted to do real fast. Give me just one second here. I knew there was something else I wanted to discuss. So I'm gonna let this loop up. It's gonna take 1 second. What I wanted to discuss is for the rest of the Leeward Islands, even down towards Trinidad and Tobago, okay? We're still gonna get some squally weather. It's not gonna be as persistent and consistent, but Barbados could see some heavier rain, St. Lucia, Grenada, and we're going to get into the rainfall potential here as well. But expect it to be a pretty rough for Barbados starting late Monday night, tomorrow night, and then for the Windward Islands, just kind of squally, rainy weather. Again, not the direct impacts, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys also knew that you weren't going to be completely dry. It's going to be breezy. We're going to have 20, 25 mile an hour winds. And again, sea surface temperatures here are running around 30 degrees Celsius. So nothing's going to stop this from, getting exceptionally warm, exceptionally quickly stronger as well. If I show you, we've got buoy data here. If I bring on this buoy data, and we look at water temperatures, there you go. You can see there's, I think it jumps up to what, to 84 Fahrenheit. But we've got some mid 80s here, so it's at least upper 20s Celsius in a lot of spots. And again, there's no wind shear as well. So now we want to look at rainfall, because that's going to be another big issue, okay? The rainfall totals from the National Hurricane Center are thus. For the northern Leeward Islands, 4 to 6 inches of rain. That is going to be 100 to 150 millimeters of rain. For Puerto Rico, believe it or not, and it's not showing up a ton on the GFS model, but we're looking at 3 to 6 inches of rain and locally up to 10. Okay, so we really need to prepare in the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico for some excessive rainfall. For the Windward Islands, south, it's 1 to 2 inches, 25 to 50 millimeters. For the southern Leeward Islands, it's 2 to 4, and for eastern Hispaniola, that would be the Dominican Republic, it is also 2 to 4 inches of rain. Okay, so again, the northern Leeward Islands, 4 to 6, the southern Leeward Islands, 2 to 4. So 100 to maybe 300 millimeters of rain. On the GFS model, which is what I've got up for you right now, let's take a look at it. It's a little bit higher in some spots, right? Dominica, 6, 7 inches of rain. Guadeloupe, 4 to 5. It all depends on the track. We don't want to look at any one number. We know that, right? But we can start averaging, that's for sure. There's Barbuda and Antigua and Montserrat and Dominica. I'm just going to paint on some of these numbers for you guys. So here's the thing. Maybe the strongest winds are a little bit farther north, but maybe some of the heaviest rainfall is farther off towards the south. St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, not as much in Trinidad and Tobago, okay? So solid rainfall totals, even though this will be moving more than likely at around 15 to 20 miles an hour as it moves through. Virgin Islands, Tortola Road Town, 6 inches. St. Thomas, St. John, 5 to 6, same thing there. Vieques, Culebra, again on the eastern sides here, higher amounts in Puerto Rico, but the GFS does not have this, more of a sharper turn. But I want you to notice that we're not far away. If this shifts just 25 miles west, then we pull in double or triple the amount of rain in Puerto Rico. And these are things to still bear out in the forecast, guys. Still things to bear out. Wouldn't expect as much for the Dominican Republic or Haiti. Turks and Caicos, obviously the orientation of the Bahamas pulls it even farther away from this storm. But down that center line, you can just see how heavy that rain is going to end up being. So that's one of the other hazards as well. If you look at the European model, it actually has a quicker recurve, but it still brings in that 3, 4, 5 inches of rain, 75, 125 millimeters with some locally higher amounts, okay? And again, that's mainly going to be Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and then up towards Bermuda eventually as well. Friends, as we continue this on, going to take one quick second to say thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo if you haven't done so as of yet and you want these forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas and your tropical updates. And of course, thank you for finding ways to support me here as well. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to cover the surf and sea conditions, I promise you, as well. So the next thing we're going to do is look at what happens with Ernesto beyond the areas that I've just covered. And obviously now we have to talk about Bermuda. So this scenario is obviously good news for the Bahamas and the United States Eastern Seaboard, right? That we are recurving this well away. This obviously is a bad scenario for our friends in Bermuda. And if I show you the GFS would have direct hurricane impacts to Bermuda as we get into next weekend. Look, there's still plenty of time for this to change, okay? These are still just lines on map, but for my friends in Bermuda, you want to start thinking about the fact that there could be an impactful storm headed your way late week, early next weekend. And again, the Hurricane Center has this moving towards your area. And again, it's a Cat 2 here, and the sustained winds right here, even if I can't, I think I can query it here if I do this, are 110 miles an hour with gusts to 132. It's officially from the Hurricane Center. That is teetering on Cat 3, okay? So this could be a very serious situation for our friends here. When I bring on the winds and we pull this out into time, just going to take 1 second here to loop this back up. And again, appreciate you guys liking the video if you haven't done so as of yet. So we'll follow the track from the GFS, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then here we go. I'll pause it over Bermuda, and we'll look in on this. And again, this would be the 17th. So this would be before, as we get towards early next week, and Friday into Saturday at this point in time. So let's bring on what those numbers would look like. And again, I apologize, for some reason this jumps in time when I want to query it. Just seeing if there's any big differences, but it doesn't look like it. So again, we would have on the GFS, sustained winds, more of a high-end Category 1, low-end Category 2. But the Hurricane Center is actually more robust with that, at least before it gets to Bermuda, right? Let's see if the GFS has it at 110 here. It doesn't look like it does. So the GFS is actually weaker by about 20 miles an hour in speed, winds, max winds, than what the Hurricane Center actually has. All right. We'll take a look at the ensemble members. Again, we've shown you the GFS deterministic, but the ensemble members have that faster recurve. There's Bermuda. Some of the members obviously have this as a direct impact to Bermuda. They do not have this coming close to the Bahamas, maybe shaving the Turks and Caicos on the western side, but there has been a noticeable shift on the GFS model north and east to go in more in line with the European model. Again, we're not talking about a track south of Puerto Rico at this point in time. It's still a possibility, but more than likely this is going to be turning north and east before it hits Puerto Rico. On the European model, we'll take out the deterministic, and again, it tracks it over the Virgin Islands north of Puerto Rico, and then has this moving up towards Bermuda. Now, it does get stronger and stronger and stronger. The recurve is actually slightly east of Bermuda, and that's as long as this model goes out. But if we could somehow curve this east of Bermuda, that would be better for our friends in Bermuda, putting them on the weaker side of Ernesto. But, we'll see how much play there is as far as that recurve goes. When you look at the European ensemble, again, it's lit up like a Christmas tree, meaning that there's a very high signal that Ernesto strengthens and does move through the Western Atlantic. And obviously, the majority of these would bring some impacts to Bermuda late week, early next weekend. When we look at the wave heights, first of all, again, anyone in the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, you need to check in with your local officials as far as any active watches and warnings and updates, but surf and sea conditions are going to go downhill very quickly. And then we could have, and this is not a misprint, here on our wave height and direction model, we could have some 15 to 20 foot waves trying to develop north and east of the islands. But then look at this, get going, look at those reds, maybe 25, 30 foot waves trying to get towards Bermuda, okay? So it'd be an exceptionally bad situation. The swells generated are likely to affect the Leeward Islands beginning Monday night. These swells are likely to cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. Please consult products from your local weather offices. That's directly from the National Hurricane Center. All right, friends. So this is the latest on PTC number 5. Again, tropical storm watches are now in effect for portions of the Leeward Islands, and additional watches and warnings are likely for other areas over the next day or two. And obviously, I'm going to keep you up to date on that. Now we're going to get into the local forecasts across the other areas that I obviously haven't covered. It's been a pretty active day in some spots. My friends in Jamaica, you guys had some pretty good rain. I saw that there was some rain in the Kingston area earlier for today, so glad you got some of those downpours, those showers and storms moving off from east to west. It's been a relatively quieter day in Hispaniola. We've had a few storms in clusters developing here. You can see those kind of north of Santo Domingo into the northwest side of Haiti. We've had storms roll over the Turks and Caicos for today. Good amount of lightning. Let me put the lightning data back on here. We've got lightning to show you at Meteo Mundo. I don't want to ignore that. All of this cool technology we have here. We've had some storms on the western sides of Puerto Rico for today, helping to kind of tame the heat a bit. It has been quieter through the Lesser Antilles in general ahead of this. Maybe a brief shower in Barbados. Let me know where you guys are viewing from. Trinidad and Tobago, a couple of brief passing showers as well. Cluster of storms out here. They've missed the ABC Islands. A little bit more active weather for today for Nicaragua and Honduras, moving through portions of mainly interior sections of Belize and Guatemala, El Salvador. It's kind of bowing south and west here to the western sides of the Yucatan. A few storms over Cozumel towards Tulum at the hour. You can see those blowing on in. So we've had some healthy showers and storms for today. Cuba's storms have been prominent again, relatively dry in the Cayman Islands. And our friends in the central and the northwest side of the Bahamas, again, an isolated shower or two, but not a lot of way of some rain. Let's get into your forecast now over the next several days. So again, I'm just going to take 1 second. Biggest thing is here, I just want to drop the model back down to not go as far out in time. And I'll do that. And again, if you have an opportunity to hit the like button or subscribe, I appreciate you. Again, a lot into this video. So I really just wanted to take my time and go over it. And we'll get into it from here. So obviously, we've significantly covered PTC number 5 / what's going to be Ernesto. The bottom line is, for the remainder of the central and the western Caribbean and the Bahamas, it's a relatively quieter forecast. We're going to get some rain to push back into the Yucatan and Central America over the next day or two, where rain chances will be a little bit more elevated. But a lot of this moisture gets pulled away with what's going to be Ernesto, and we have a drier forecast in general. I don't expect there to be as much rain over the next couple of days for places like Kingston, Portmore, Spanish Town, and Jamaica, for Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, Cayman Brac. It's going to be isolated. The localized showers and storms for our friends in Freeport, Lucaya, and Nassau, back down towards Cat Island and Georgetown. Again, for our friends in the Turks and Caicos, I'll keep a close eye on it, but at this point in time on this track, you would just kind of get brushed on the western side. And of course, the western side isn't going to be nearly as strong as the eye or off towards the east. And so we would have okay conditions in Dominican Republic and Haiti as well, more brushed with this system than anything else. And as this pulls away from the Lesser Antilles in general, we'll see a bit of a drying trend, at least in the short term. For Bermuda, actually, kind of what was left of Debbie and a frontal system coming through will actually provide you with some decent rain chances the next couple of days ahead of whatever Ernesto may bring late into the week. So now we get into the island by island forecast. Told you we'd do that. Here we go. Northwest Bahamas, isolated to scattered storms, localized with the heat of the day, next several days. Same thing for the central and southeast Bahamas. Again, rain chances will improve for the Turks and the Caicos, but just not right now expect the direct impacts out of what's going to become Ernesto. We'll still see high chances for those local storms in Cuba. Cayman Islands rain chances are relatively isolated. Belize City's best rain chance is Tuesday. Cancun and Cozumel stay on the isolated side. Again, not as much rain in the forecast for Jamaica overall. Doesn't mean you won't see some storms. Watch out for that heat though. 110 to 115 feels like temperature 43 to 45 degrees Celsius in the afternoon. Dominican Republic's rain chances will go up. Puerto Rico's rain chances obviously really begin to surge late Tuesday, Wednesday. U.S. and British Virgin Islands Tuesday into Wednesday as well. Bermuda, again, well before Ernesto, healthy rain chances. Anguilla at St. Kitts and Nevis, Seba St. Eustatius, those areas. Scattered showers tomorrow. The weather just goes downhill through the day on Tuesday. It's going to be wet late Tuesday, wet on Wednesday. Tropical storm conditions likely in these areas. Same thing for Antigua and Barbuda. Montserrat, Guadeloupe, Dominica, all with rain on Tuesday and still high rain chances, if not exceptionally high rain chances, even through the day on Wednesday. You get down towards St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, best chance for rain is going to be late Monday into Tuesday. And then as Ernesto pulls north, it starts to dry out. Barbados as well. And by the way, these areas, as we get to the Windward Islands, still could see some localized flooding. It's not out of the question. Okay, but it's not going to be as persistent of the rain that they're going to see to the north. Grenada, again, high chance on Tuesday. Trinidad and Tobago, just far enough south where it's good rain chances, but not the extremely elevated kind. Suriname and Guyana stay with decent rain chances. Best rain chance for Nueva Esparta is on Tuesday. And the ABC Islands, once again, don't get a lot of rain out of this as all that moisture pulls up to the east and to the north before your area. Friends, I'm going to keep you updated here. You can also keep updated across all of our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. Send me a picture or video at mymediamundo@gmail.com. So again, we have PTC number 5. more than likely going to become a tropical depression in the next 24 hours, and then Tropical Storm Ernesto before it moves into the Leeward Islands on Tuesday. I will be back tomorrow with another video update. We'll talk about bringing back our 24/7 radar, and then talk about some of the live stream and myself going live as this system approaches the Leeward Islands. We'll discuss a lot more about that on our Monday. Friends, have a great rest of your Sunday. Again, thank you for liking, subscribing, driving a comment below, and sharing this with your family and friends who you think might get something out of it. I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.